Mr. Cox.
Point of personal privilege, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, every time we come to the reconvened session, especially during this odd year session, we're faced with a lot of retirements. As a matter of fact, this year we're faced with 8, and I was doing some math. It adds up to 154 years of service in this body. And they are from Bedford, Virginia Beach, Wythe, Pennsylvania, Hanover, Washington, Fairfax, so it covers the entire state. And I've been really blessed to serve for 24 years down here. And the unique thing about this place is that you deal with each other in a very intense manner when you're down here. And it's a special place. It's where friendships are made. And I think the toughest thing about this business is when people leave, because you know how much they've contributed to this body, the most historical body. So I'm going to do something a little bit unusual. I'd like to quickly say something about all 8, because all 8 have been really good friends to me, and I think have all added significantly to this chamber. Let me start with the gentleman from Hanover, Mr. Cox. And of course, his name has driven me crazy over the last 4 years, because I can never, whenever the speaker goes, Delegate Cox, I jump up, I think it's me, and I think I'm in the wrong place on my script. You know how I like my script as majority leader. But John has done a tremendous job. He loves this institution. The very first year John served, we did a teletown hall together. And I was amazed by his ability to know so many subject areas, and that's great. But he'd only served about 6 months. And I can't tell you how many people just called and knew John personally and thanked him for just being a great delegate. The guy had just gotten here. So he built so many community roots. So we're going to miss John greatly. Don Merricks, the gentleman from Pennsylvania. Don, I've loved serving with. He's one of those guys that you've got to have. He's quiet. He's very smart. He's great for his district. And, you know, in Bible studies, Don is one of the most, he just loves the Lord. He sings. You can just see how that comes out, and he's just been a blessing to this chamber. So I'm going to miss Don especially. Who can forget the third one? And that's Andy B. Crockett Stark. All right. Okay, the gentlewoman from Wythe, who's the fireside chats, just like Roosevelt. She's done more entertaining stories than I've done in 24 years. Maybe she'll do one today, I hope. But she's done a lot of very significant things, especially in the aftermath of Virginia Tech. A lot of her bills came out of that. And I know she's very, very proud of those. But if I can name one thing that I think just stands out about her is she just loved her constituents. They were her people. I don't think anyone probably has ever served their constituents more or cared more about them than the gentlewoman from Wythe. I'm going to say this, even though he got a bunch of speeches last time, and I felt bad because I didn't say anything, but the gentleman from Virginia Beach, Sal Iaquinto, I have great admiration for, too. You know, we cited all the things he's done with drunk driving, et cetera, but he's particularly been a guy that I can turn to on so many issues and is always very calm and gives me really good advice when I need to calm down. So Sal is a great guy, and we're going to miss him greatly. The next two on the other side of the aisle, and they've been very good friends. Jim Scott came in 91, just 2 years behind me in a landslide election, I think by 6 or 8 votes. Won. How did I forget that? Won. But the gentleman from Fairfax, we've served together on appropriations a long time, and everyone's got their passions. He has done so much for certain areas. I would say number one, brain injury. He is sort of our conscience on that issue up in appropriations. He always nudges and reminds me, and you know, that's something I'm going to sort of redouble my efforts on next year because of Jim Scott. Of course, he's also been a great advocate of K-12, so it's been great serving with Jim. Joe Johnson is the next, and I know the gentleman from Scott's going to say a lot more about Joe Johnson, but he's the gentleman from Washington. He's actually served twice. He came back in with me in 1989, and he's a gentleman. There's not a whole lot more to be said about a guy that just everyone thinks is what you should be down here. He's one of the most humble servants you'll ever know, and he's just a pleasure to know. He's been extremely good to me, and of course when I got here we were in the minority, and he was a guy that treated me tremendously well. So Joe, we're going to miss you tremendously. Next is Coach Tata. I was saying appropriations. We've all forgotten his first name. It's Bob, I think. But coach, and of course I can relate to this because I thought that's what I wanted to do, was actually be a coach and not do this politics stuff. But of course he was an outstanding football and baseball player. Most people I think remember the football. People don't remember the baseball. And he was one of the best players actually in baseball. Got drafted, as I recall, by the Tigers. And so, of course, then he was a legendary coach. Where I think he's made the biggest impact is on appropriations in K-12. And I'll tell you the reason why, and this is why this is such a great place. We come with our own expertise, and he knew schools. He'd been in them. He'd been in every kind of school. And he would tell you, that's not practically going to work. That might sound great in theory. I'm telling you, that will not work. And he's been the chairman of our appropriations subcommittee in K-12, which I've been on, I think, the entire time. So I can't thank him enough for all he's done. And finally, the guy that I don't know what you say about, Lacey Putney, who has been here since 1961, 13 governors. And I know a lot of people can give speeches about Lacey, but I want to focus on appropriations because that's sort of where, obviously, I've had the relationship with him. First of all, you would be absolutely remiss if you didn't mention Carmela, who has been a wonderful companion. She is one of the neatest ladies you ever wanted to meet. And they are true partners. And it's just fun to see. It's fun to see them hold hands, and it's fun just to see them show you what an ideal marriage is. But Lacey's been our leader in appropriations. And you need a leader up there. And he's sort of been, I've said, our lion. He's the guy that we all turn to. I've been the vice chairman for several years, and of course he's been extremely good to me. The thing I love about Lacey is that he allows the subcommittee chairman to act as subcommittee chairman. He gives them a lot of leeway. He's totally revolutionized the way appropriation is done. I think the minority leader has been nice enough to comment on how the process has improved every year. That was Lacey who insisted on that. He wanted to make sure that folks on both sides of the aisle saw a much more transparent process than when I think Lacey got there and there were actually armed Capitol Police, not armed, but Capitol Police standing in front of the door, wouldn't let you in if you remember. And so that's how much has changed. He's not only a great leader because he gives us leeway, he will weigh in. If he doesn't like what you're doing, believe me, he will let you know. And that's particularly important, I think, for a leader. And he's done that so well for us. The other thing that amazes me about him is that he has an institutional memory like no one down here. We'll be sitting there in appropriations discussing VRS, or his proudest achievement, I think, is the bond packages and how we've totally redone the way we do bonding of capital projects. So we start talking about this stuff, and he'll tell you who passed the bill in 1966 on the floor, and this is what he tells you what he said. I can't remember my last bill, and he's reciting the debate back and forth, so he gives such perspective. The other thing he does really well, which I'm going to attempt to do, and this is the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life on the floor, is he tells great jokes, and I can't tell a joke. And as a matter of fact, in appropriations, he will kick back, lean back, and he'll reel off a joke and never look at a note. Well, I don't have any jokes, so I run into my office and I write them down, if the secret be true. So I'm going to end with a Lacey Putney joke. Yeah, I know you're not going to laugh, which will really make me feel bad. But a lot of you will like this because it's a baseball joke, which I thought was very appropriate to end with. There were two lifelong friends. See if I wrote this. I have to write it down because I can remember the joke. Abe and Hank, who loved baseball and played together through high school and college. As they got older, they began to wonder if there would be baseball in heaven. This topic began to dominate their conversation, so they made each other a promise. Whichever died first would let the other one know there truly was baseball in heaven. Abe died first, and sure enough came back to visit Hank. He told Hank he had good news and bad news for him. The good news was there really was baseball in heaven. The bad news was that Hank was pitching the second game of the doubleheader on Sunday. Now, he gets more laughter than me. He must have 30 of those. And so it's just a real privilege to have known him and all 8 of these wonderful folks. I hope the House will give all 8 of them a warm round of applause.
It is a very special group. And it's not too late for some of you to change your mind.